you. And I'm going to talk a lot about that today. So let's get started. And I've titled this presentation called What I Wish I Knew. So I'm getting close to 50, I'm 47, so it's been 30 years since I was at school. And some of the things I'm going to share with you today are some of the things that I wish someone maybe had shared with me when I was at your stage of school. I do remember a guy who came and talked to us. His name was Tony Parker, and there were a few things that I learned from him that day that I still live by and do in my life. So my goal today is to help you come up with some new ways of looking at the world, looking at yourselves, and what actually is going to help you get more of what you want out of life. So is everybody okay with that? Fantastic. Let's review. Let me tell you about my voyage. And as I said, I grew up, well, in a small country town called Tenterfield. Has anyone heard of Tenterfield? I think I've told some of you guys before. But in winter time, it was freezing cold. Like, we quite often see Tenterfield on the news because it snows, yeah? So I had a paper run. That was one of my first jobs. I used to get out in almost a snow summer morning. So I think it's probably where I got to understand about work ethic. Now, my running joke is, I actually had a degree in electrical engineering. And this is the thing about life. I started out, and I was just talking to Mick about this, that I actually want to be a teacher at one stage. So I've gone through so many different career iterations. So one of the things I would say to you at this point is, life changes. You know, you might have a completely different career. Like where I am now, there is no way I would have ever guessed that this is where I would be in my life. To think I'm standing in front of a group of class, year 10 students, talking to them about business and life, never would have even occurred to me. So the running joke is I used to be an engineer, but I'm better now. If you know what an engineer is, and I do apologise if anyone's thinking of doing engineering, it's a great career, but they are a little bit different. Very good at numbers and those sorts of things, which is important in business and important in life as well. You don't have to be a maths genius, but you've got to understand some of the basic numbers. Now, I'm not sure if any of you guys have ever seen this picture before. To a lot of people, this picture is Sydney 2000 Olympics, which is 20 years ago. And this was at the sort of height of when I was doing the engineering career thing. But for me, that's the scariest 4 minutes of my life. I was petrified when that photo was taken back in 2000, with Captain Freeman standing under there. Now, I was petrified because at the Olympics, that night when we did the opening ceremony, the cauldron, that big fire wheel got stuck, but nobody knew it. And at the end of the Olympics, when we finally got it up and clicked it into place, we pulled everything apart, the cauldron had a temporary gas bottle left in it, and it had 10 seconds worth of gas left in it. So we came this close that night to letting the Olympic torch go out. And it was the most terrifying thing in my 4 minutes of my life, because billions of people are watching this around the world, and I was actually working at the stadium for 6 months beforehand. But thankfully, we made it to the top and it locked it, it was all good. This is a picture of my first business. Okay, so I left the engineering thing and I went in to do my own business. And it was a gym in Sydney. And those ladies there are my heart class ladies. They had more energy, more get up and go than most of the members that I was dealing with. But here's the thing, I really sucked at that business. I was terrible, okay? I didn't know what I was doing. I thought I was pretty clever, you know, I had this degree in engineering. I'd always worked pretty hard, but I had days where I just wished the earth would open up and swallow me. I was going broke, my marriage was failing, my health was failing, ironically in the gym business, and it was pretty yucky. Thankfully though, I got some help with that business. And that's another important message. Always reach out for help, it's always there. And I came across a guy called Brad Sugars, who is the founder and CEO of Action Coach. And that started me on this journey that I'm in today with business. And ended up selling that business, I built it up, did quite well, and then moved to Brisbane and sort of started again. Action Coach is the name of the business that I'm part of. It's a global business coaching franchise. And I rank in the top 100 coaches globally. There's about 1,000 of us, I think, at the moment. So I rank about 50 or somewhere in the world. And as Mick said as well, they're my two kids. They're Braden and Lane, who are now 9 and 10. And some of the things I'm going to share with you today is exactly what I work on with them all the time. These are some of the most important things that you're ever going to learn today. So, with that all in mind, I want to start off with a quick question about what do you think the two most dangerous words in business and life might be? Sometimes I hear people say can't, can, yes, no. But here is what I've learned over the years, that the two most dangerous words in business are, I know. When someone says something to you and you say to yourself, yeah, I know that. You know what your brain does? It actually shuts down. and it goes off on a different tangent. It goes looking for what am I going to do tonight, who am I going to hang out with after school, and all those sorts of things. But here's the thing. What I realised as I've got older, the more I thought I knew, the less I realised I know. There's just so much stuff out there that stops you from getting ahead. And it's finding distinctions on things that you already know that make the biggest difference. And when you say, I know, you trap yourself from a learning perspective. You're looking for finding distinctions on things we already know. Mark Twain said it best, he said, it's not what you know that gets you into trouble. It's what you know that just ain't so that gets you into trouble. Sometimes we think we know lots of stuff, yeah? But the reality is we can always be learning more. So my suggestion is just notice this little voice in your head. And maybe it's come up already where I said some stuff. You might have sat there, maybe in class today, you sat there and gone, yeah, I know that. Check in with that. Just notice the first time I saw this, it shit me. And if I swear, spiritually harmonising and tell the truth, is that okay? Sorry, I won't swear much. But when I first saw this, it was painful because I realised I did this a lot. And every time I would do it, I would kind of, here I go again. So just become aware of it. I want to give you a better way to look at what happens in your brain when this is going on. So let's imagine we've got a situation, and when you do I know, you're picking a side. You're either going to be right or you're going to be wrong. Now here's the interesting thing these days. There's not much new being invented. Now you might go, that's crazy, Dad. There's new stuff coming out all the time. Well, what I mean by that is there's no new chemical elements, there's no new laws of physics, there's nothing like that. But what happens these days is combinations of existing ideas. So if you think about the iPhone or any smartphone, when they first come out, and this is before you guys' time, they were a mobile phone and an MP3 player. That was it. It was a combination of two existing technologies. Now, we've got cameras, we've got GPSs, we've got different apps, so it's combinations of existing ideas. Now, when you do I know, you pick a side, as I said, and it stops something so important. It stops possibility. Because when you combine your ideas with somebody else's, you can come up with new and better ideas. What I do in my business and with Chamber is I know all about things in business, and I work with people who know their business really well, and we work out, okay, what's the solution between the both of us that can come up with, that we can come up with, that's better than what we have as individuals. So be really careful and watch this part of your brain, because this is how you will really start to jump ahead. New possibilities in any situation. It's not just a business thing. Maybe it's hanging out with friends on the weekend. What are we going to do? You have a bit of a chat about it. If you do the I know or pick a side, you limit your possibilities and opportunities. So my suggestion is to you, we replace the I know voice that we have with, isn't that interesting? Because when your brain is interesting, it perks up and it starts to think about what's interesting here. Your brain is a solution finding machine. It will go and find, like Google, solutions for whatever you want. And this is where the questions part that Mick was talking about is. If you want to have a great quality of life, you've got to get good at asking great questions. Okay? So keep that one in mind, particularly as I'm going through this today. Now, what is communication? This is another big thing that has taken me a long time to get my head around and how to get good at it. And I kind of had this realisation the other day, and I've known it for a while, I guess, that most of the problems in the world with our friends and with our family, teachers in school and all the rest of it, comes down to communication. And when I ask people, in a coaching session or when I'm working with someone, what is this thing called communication? And I talk about a fictional character called Marvin the Martian. Marvin comes from outer space, he lands on planet Earth, and he says, what's this thing called communication? And I hear people say, well, it's about sending information out, it's about getting your point across, and lots of different things. But I want to give you a definition of communication today that will change how you think about communication. True communication is the response you get. So it's not what you're sending out. So many people think, oh, I'm a fantastic communicator, and they're good at vomiting information out at people, but they don't take notice of what comes back. So if you're not getting the results that you want, then you need to take responsibility, and remember that true communication is the response you get. So maybe you need to ask a better question. Because think about it. It's not the answer that stops us. Usually when we discover a new piece of information or a solution to a problem we've got, It's the question just before the answer comes. So getting good at the question is making the answer come along a lot faster. And I have a really important principle that I follow, is the only dumb question is the one you don't ask. Because I guarantee you that in most environments, if someone like me is up the front and I'm presenting, or a teacher or anyone like that, and you're not understanding it, then the emphasis needs to be put back onto them to maybe try communicating in a different way. Because there's a good chance that there's a whole bunch of other people in your class who aren't getting this concept as well. So don't ever think there's such a thing as a dumb question. I can't tell you how many perceivedly dumb questions my clients have had that when we addressed it and worked it out, changed their businesses. Really important to ask the right questions. Now, this is the above and below the line thing that I really want. If I could change one thing in the whole world, it would be that everybody gets this. This is the big kahuna of them all. We're going to start out with this line. And as we're going along every day, we're making choices. Sometimes making a choice, or not making a choice, is actually a choice as well. So I'm going to call this thing the line of choice. And as we go through life, we're making our decisions. I want to tell you about a fictional character I used to tell the story about this. Now, his name's Don, or it could be a her. Him or her, doesn't matter. It's Don. Both ways. And Don, and I'm talking about a business context here. And you can think about it in your lives, whether it's on a sporting field or wherever it is at home, doesn't matter. Same thing. And Don's a bit of a self-professed rock star. He thinks he works in his business and that it's the business does as well as it does because of Don. Don has been here since day one. The boss doesn't have a clue. The boss is Nicky. The boss has got no idea. Don's the one who's the kingpin. So Don would come to something like this, and he would sit in the audience, and he would walk out here going, "What a load of crap that was." The boss is off on another crazy trip again. He doesn't know what he's talking about. This place is nothing without me. So we bring Don in, and we have a bit of a chat to him. You see, Don's not quite as crash hot as he thinks he is. He's in what we call a state of denial. Denial is not a river in Egypt. Denial is when you're sticking your head in the sand. And we have a bit of a chat to him and help him understand that he's not as good as he thinks he is. In fact, he's pretty ordinary at what he does in his job. The next thing Don generally does is he starts to make excuses. Okay? And he says, well, how can I be expected to work in this place? My machine doesn't work anywhere near as good as Paul's over there. And Penny over there, her machine is way better than mine. And when you say to him, well, Don, you know what? You know when you were away a couple of weeks ago? Well, Paul got on your machine. He actually had a 37% higher output than you do. So it's not the machine, mate. And he goes, oh, you know what? It's my wife. My home life. My kids drive me insane. It's the government, it's the politicians, it's the police, it's everybody else's fault. And then we start to have a bit of a chat to him and get him to realise what is going on. And you know what? A lot of the time, people don't even know they're doing it. Blame, excuses, and denial. But over time, we work with Don. He starts to become aware of some of his actions and some of the things that he's doing. And he starts to realise that he's being a bit of a victim. You know what a victim is? Yeah? They're real sort of everybody else's fault, but not mine. Victims don't get to play real hard in this thing called life. So we start to get Don to take some responsibility. And the word responsibility is quite interesting. It means able to respond. We all, in this country, if you're born in Australia or you live in Australia, you've won the lottery of life. Particularly over the last 6 months. We are in the best position globally. And this is one of the things I'm really big on, is in Queensland in particular, we need to accelerate like the bejesus out of this, because we are not going to get another chance like this in our lifetime, where we can jump so far ahead of the rest of the world. And you guys are part of that. Starting to change how we become accountable. Now the key word in accountable is count. As I said, life's about numbers. Do you get your homework done on time? Do you eat the right number of calories in your diet? Do you tell your family that you love them? It's all a count. So by being more accountable, we can keep score in life. At the top of the tree there, we've got this thing called ownership, where you are in your own ship. It's your life. It's up to you how you choose to live it. Okay? It's on you. Here's the thing, most people, victors, they're playing above the line. But you know what? I had taught this principle for over 10 years, and it just wasn't getting through. And so I started looking at why don't people get this? Why don't they live it? And so I came up with a bunch of distinctions. Okay, so if that little I know voice has come up in your head so far, you think, yeah, but I'm pretty good at this stuff. Let's dive a bit deeper. Let's go into some distinctions and see. So the first distinction I have is there's results and there's reasons. If you're going to do something, either do it or you don't do it. A reason is just a fancy word for an excuse. And as an employer, it's one of the things that gets our go more than anything else is when we've got employees who do not want to take responsibility. It's a boss killer. We just don't want to put up with it. Proactive versus reactive. See, the word proactive, pro means forwards, going forwards. Reactive means do it again and again and again. I'm going to share a story with you about, has anyone ever heard of Anthony Robbins or Tony Robbins? Few people might have. He's a sort of a coach guy, inspirational speaker. And I went to one of his big courses. There's 3,000 people at this course in one big hall, right? 3,000. And we did a fire walk. All 3,000 people, where they burned coals at the end of the first day, we walked on fire. It was amazing. Anyway, we played Simon Says. Everyone knows how to play Simon Says. You know, Simon Says do this, Simon Says do that. 3,000 people, right? I'm a pretty competitive kind of guy. I thought, right, I can take this out. I can do this. I got knocked out on the second round. It was pretty crappy. But it got down to 6 people on stage. They brought 6 people up on the stage who were the ones who got through all the little tests. Now the rules of Simon Says are pretty clear. Simon says something, then anything after that doesn't count. So they're up on stage, and the presenter says, okay, Simon says, turn and face your partner. And what do you think most people did? They did this. What do you think the guy who won did? Because the rules of Simon Says, they went turn, and that was it. And face your partner. Anything after turn didn't count. And that's how the guy won the game. You know, like a $5,000 course or something like that. So they asked him, after everyone had sat down, they said, how did you do that? How come you, out of 3,000 people here, were the last person standing? And he stood there, paused for a minute. He said, every time you gave an instruction, I stopped and I thought before I acted. How often do we just react? We redo what we've always done, again and again. Sometimes taking that little moment to pause and think about what you're going to do next. To think about, how can I proact? How can I make an above-the-line decision? Can make a huge difference. In fact, really successful people are good at this. They take their time around making decisions or making the right decision. Inside versus outside. Everybody, point at me like this right now. Everybody, point. Now, right now, there's one finger pointing at me. There's one finger pointing up to God, Allah, or whoever you want to believe in. And there's 3 fingers pointing back at you. Thank you. Put your hands down. So 60% is on you, right? 1 on me, 3 fingers back at you is 60%. So people who take above-the-line action go inside first. They ask themselves, how did I create this? How did I get myself in this? What am I going to do? Below the line, people go, it's your fault, my mum's fault, my dad's fault, my teacher's fault, my friend's fault, it's everybody else's fault. You want some wine with that? You want some cheese with that wine? Taking responsibility is really important. Next one, present and future versus the past. What can you do about the past? Nothing. Not a damn thing. But there is one thing you can get from the past. You can learn from it. You can actually make sure you don't make the same mistake again. So people who play above the line look at the present and the future. People who play below the line tend to talk a lot about the past, bitch and moan and carry on about everything. If I talk to successful business owners and people in the community, they're talking about what they're doing now and what they're going to be doing going forwards. Occasionally they'll talk about the past, but it's mainly to learn. Conscious and unconscious. Conscious means you're aware of it. Unconscious means you've got no idea. And look, some people are never going to get this concept. They just won't. And that's okay. That's their choice. Sad thing is they don't even know they're doing it. So people who play above the line make a conscious effort. They make an actual concerted effort to make it happen. Empowering versus disempowering. When you play above the line, it energises you. Ever been around someone who may play below the line that suck the life out of you? That's disempowering. Watch those people. Don't let them steal your energy. Energy vampires. Move away from them. Growing versus dying. Here's the thing. On planet Earth, anything that lives, including people, plants, bugs, trees, you name it, anything that lives either grows or dies. It doesn't sit flat. You're either growing or you're dying. So if you're going, yeah, barrel cruise, I'm doing okay, you're dying. I see this with business owners all the time. Their first 12 months they go into business, they're all excited, and they're growing, and they get to a point where they're, I made it now, I'm good. And they will spend the next 5, 10, 20 years dying, slow death, because they're not evolving, they're not changing. This world changes so fast. In fact, you know what the world is trying to do? Get you to play a better game. It's quite clever. It really sucks sometimes because it can be a little bit painful. But it is actually trying to work in your favour to help you become a better person, to do better at whatever it is you're doing. So growing or dying. Acceptance and justification. This one also gets on business owners' nerves. If something goes wrong and you justify it, it just kills us. If you mess up, own it. You know, times I worked at the Olympics, we had a major disaster about 3 months before the Olympics, where we had a switchboard, boom, blow up. Now we're 3 months out from the biggest event in the world, and we've just had a switchboard blow up. You can imagine the panic and the politicians going crazy and going bananas. So we worked out what we needed to do so that it wouldn't happen. Part of the solution was we had to shut down the switchboards that were relevant and clean them out thoroughly, because they had a lot of metal filings and things in them because there was so much work happening. So the first one we organised, and was my job to coordinate shutting down these switchboards. So I get everything sorted, and it happens overnight. Go home, go to bed, come back to work the next day. This is in the stadium. And I'm sitting there and there's this posse. You know, a posse is like a group of people in the Cowboys and Westerns movie, like riding up towards you. So it was these people from something called Sydney Olympic Organising Authority, right? And I could see they were pissed at something. I thought, oh shit, what's going to happen here? Because it's very political in these things. And they came marching in and they said, who turned off the power supply last night? Because what happened was, the power supply fed Telstra, fed IBM, and all of these big corporate type data centres. So all these alarms are going off in the middle of the night. I'm sound asleep at home. And you know what I did? I knew it was me. So I stood up and said, that was me. And these guys all stopped and looked at me and went, they didn't know what to say, because they came in looking for a fight. And as soon as I owned it, there was no fight. And they said, well, don't do it again. And they turned around and walked out again. You see, when you tell the truth, you put it in the past. When you tell a lie, you put it in the future. And it's coming back. It always does. Last one, soul versus ego. When you're living above the line as much as you can, you tend to live by your soul. And it sounds a bit woo-woo and foo-foo and all the rest of it, I know. But most of the problems in the world are caused by people's ego. And we get a little bit of ego and we have to defend ourselves, you know what I'm saying? And then we have to defend and defend, and before we know it, we've got this massive big problem. If we'd have just gone in hard and early to start with and popped the problem, told the truth, and not let our ego get the better of us. So really watch out. It's tough for you guys at this stage. I remember the teenage years. They suck. I remember. And that's why I want to share these lessons with you today. So, now you can see here the guy above the line, he's bashed a bit, you know, but he's still in the game. Whereas the person down here, they're completely knocked out. But here's the thing, no one plays above the line all the time. Has anyone ever heard of the Dalai Lama? No? The Dalai Lama is the head of the Buddhist movement, right? It's a bit like the Pope, the Catholics, and those sorts of things. And I've seen him speak. And he's sitting there talking one day about, you know, how he does life and how he feels and the rest of it. And he plays below the line sometimes as well. Oh, wow, the Dalai Lama, he meditates for 8 hours a day. And he still plays below the line. So no one lives above the line all the time. Here's the trick. The secret is to strive to play above the line. It's to catch yourself down the bottom and get up there as quick as possible. And you know how you do that? This is the scary part, but it's also, ironically, scary, but also the most powerful thing you can do. And that's be vulnerable. When those guys came into the Olympics, into our office that day, I had to really be very vulnerable, put my hand up, and I could have made up some cock and bullshit story about what happened, blah, 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 but I put myself out there, and I made myself vulnerable. Took ownership of the situation. Now, if you are vulnerable, it doesn't mean bawling your eyes out and carrying on and having a pity party or anything like that, but if you do actually show some vulnerability and someone disrespects that, you know, we're big here at this school and this community on respect, that's a pretty good sign they need to move away. So be aware of those people. But that's your challenge. Above and below the line requires a fair amount of vulnerability. If you get this now, it will change your life. Quality of life. Now we want to talk about questions. So, the quality of your life is determined by the quality of the questions you ask. So let's start. Down here, first thing about great questions is it depends on the quality of your mentor or your teacher. So right now, I'm a mentor or a teacher for you guys. What my job to do, and your teachers' jobs as well, is to help improve your quality of your knowledge and your education. But this is a fair bit on you as well, because they can't jam it in your head. You've got to work hard to get it. Because what that then does is determine the quality of what you believe is possible, of what dreams you can achieve, and all those sorts of things. So someone who has a better education is able to have more options. And at the end of the day, having more options is key. If you're stuck and you don't know how to move forwards, you know you want to, but you don't know what you're going to do, it's about finding a better option. And options come out of asking questions. Like I said, quality of your questions. So your quality of your beliefs and dreams, see how these all stack together, determines the quality of the questions that you ask. So like I said, let's say you come home and you can't find your phone or your keys or something. What's usually the question you're asking yourself? It's usually, where do I have my phone? I can't find my phone. Where's my bloody phone? Where's my keys? Can't find my keys. And you're asking the same question over and over. What if you started asking some different questions? Because when you ask a different question, you fire up a different part of your brain that gives you different options, better options. What if you said, when was the last time I remember having my phone? Was I in my school uniform or had I got changed? Was it hot or cold? Each time you ask a different question, you take a step towards the answer. And eventually you get just before what you're looking for and the right question pops into your head. And you go, that's what I need. So like I said, teaching my kids how to ask others and themselves great questions is part of my job as a parent. Who knows what the two types of questions are? Has anyone heard of the two types of questions? There's open-ended questions and there's closed-ended questions. A closed-ended question means you can only answer with yes or no. Did you find your keys? Yes, no. The open-ended question means you can't answer with yes or no. And it starts with 6 key question starters. They are, anyone know these ones? Who, where, what, why, how, and when. When I first started as a coach, coaching was a lot about asking questions. I had these written on a wall behind where my clients were sitting. So that if I ever got stuck, I would look up, didn't really matter which one I pick one of those and come up with a question. They didn't know I didn't know what I was doing. They thought I was pretty clever asking these questions. I didn't have 3 clues. So if you're ever stuck of asking others questions or yourself, you go there to start with. Who, where, what, why, when, and how. And you keep asking questions until you get closer and closer to the answer. And eventually it'll pop out. Because when you've got good quality of questions, you make good quality decisions. When you make a decision, the word literally, you know what, when we talk about scissors, so a decision is to cut. Literally the word means to cut. So when you make a decision, you cut and pick one option. So making quality decisions then determines what the quality of the actions are that you get to take. And like I said, sometimes when you start and you don't know what to do, having a better option is usually just one question away. And I do this with some of my closest friends. If I'm stuck with something, I say, I need some help with this. Ask me some different questions. I've got 2 coaches, I see a psychologist, to help me think better, to ask better questions, to play a better game. So it's so important. And that then determines the quality of the results you get. So if you're not happy with the quality of the results you're getting, start at the bottom. Now, mentors and teachers are, this day and age, everywhere. You can Google anything you like. Find an adult who you trust and feel safe that you can open up to them. Read books, listen to audio programs, Audible, all those sorts of things. There's no way these days that you can't find the answer. You guys are so lucky, you didn't have Google and all that. We had books, that was it. I didn't like reading when I was a kid. I like playing sport. So that's how to determine the quality of your life. You have to start, think about what's the question I need to ask. So here's the thing. Life is, and over my course, and I've spent hundreds of thousands of dollars on my own education and courses, not to mention what I've learned personally through business and the rest of it. It comes down to two really simple things. Everything in life can be defined by these two simple things. Number one, life is what it is. If something happens, it is what it is. There's nothing you can do about it. It's happened, it's in the past. But how do you look at that thing is all relative. So imagine this. You've got three people, and they're watching this same experience of something. Maybe someone spills a cup of coffee. Maybe someone starts laughing. Maybe someone bangs their hand on the table. And the three people all see it at the same time. The first person goes, "Oh, wow, that's fantastic. That's awesome." The second person goes, "Nah." And the third person goes, "Oh, that's the most terrible thing I've ever seen." It was the same thing, but everybody saw it completely differently. So whatever you have a challenge with, it is what it is, and it's all relative. Which bit can you change? This bit. You can change the way you think about it. And you change the way you think about it by asking a better question. If something shitty happens to you, ask yourself, this is tough. How is this going to help me? And don't stop until you come up with some good quality answers. You may have to calm down sometimes and get all pissed up. Or if something really cool happens to you, I'm a big one for staying in the middle. Enjoy the cool thing, but also say, what's the downside of this? And bring yourself back into balance. So life is what it is, and it's all relative. So I want to close off now with a quote by a guy called Jim Rohn. So Jim Rohn's been one of my favourite guys that I've learned a lot from. And he said, "Never wish your life were easier, wish that you were better." Life is going to continually be throwing challenges at you. You don't want life to be easier. And you know what? I talk about this with my clients a lot of the time. Sometimes people think, if I just get $1 million, I'll be there, I'll make it, I'll have made it. Or if I just get this girlfriend, or if I just get this boyfriend, if I just get this job, I'll just make it. Here's the thing, you never make it. As long as you're on planet Earth, if you don't have problems and challenges, check the pulse. You may be dead. We all get problems, okay? So make sure that you're making the most of when these problems and things come up. Turning them into a positive. Wish you were better, find a way to get better. So, I'm going to finish up now. I don't know if anyone has any questions or anything like that. If you do have a question, feel free to ask it. If not, I'll be hanging around if you want to come have a chat to me. But hopefully you've got a few ideas from today around what I've learned over my last 30 plus years since I left school about what works in life and how you can start to take control of it. Above and below the line, you look me up on YouTube. If you look up Redcliffe on YouTube, there's a video similar to what we've talked about today. And there's a whole bunch of business videos in there as well. So you're sitting around the peninsula, come up, say hello. I might remember you and say, hey, you saw you speak at school that day. So, and enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you very much. What business do I own? Okay, so I have an online business, I have a publishing business, I've got a couple of books, I have a business coaching business as well. So they're the three businesses that I work with at the moment. Great question. And you know what? They're things that inspire me, they're things that I love to do, right? So if you're doing something that doesn't fizz you up, you might be on the wrong path, okay? But yeah, thank you. Other questions? No? Oh, sorry.